This slideshow is mainly about some things that you might not know about the United States and how it operates today. We'll start off with talking about how the United States kind of affects the entire world. And what has happened is we've gotten more and more technology, and our technology has increased a ton throughout the last really couple hundred years. And so as our technology started to grow, so did our society and our influence start to grow. And proof that our technology is some of the best in the world is that most of the world's internet messages run through America or originate from America. And so a lot of them come through this area. And so our culture, our American culture, spreads instantly all the way around the world, as you know, internet messages do, and they're permanent. And so our culture can really, really spread out because of all the technology. Every person basically in America can be sharing parts of their culture with the rest of the world. And so for that reason, it's really safe to say that America has the most influence in the entire world culturally. With the economy, as you remember, every single economy is mixed in some type. None of them are exactly one or exactly the other. But if somebody asks you what type of economy is America, it's mostly a market economy. And so, really, we'll talk about it like a market economy, even though there truly are no perfect systems in the world. Okay, but it's a market economy because, for the most part, individuals, business owners, and consumers make all of the decisions on buying and selling and price setting and all that kind of stuff. Okay, the government generally doesn't get involved in any of those things. The only way that ours is a command economy is because the government does regulate to make sure our food is safe, make sure our medicine is safe, and things like that. Okay, so supply and demand is the way that all of our prices are set, not through the government making decisions. And really, we're a top economy in these four sectors. Medical science, we have some of the best doctors and researchers in the entire world. We are an absolute top economy in agriculture because we have this huge area. I mean, the United States is a big area and it's fertile land. It's good land where you can farm and you can grow things. Whereas the other two countries that are bigger than us, Russia and Canada, have a whole lot of this land that's way too cold to farm or anything like that. We also are a top economy in entertainment. When you think about music, movies, TV, books, all of these things, a lot of it originates from America, as well as in banking. So how does America contribute to the world economy? Well, some of our exports, out of our exports, the most important one and largest export that we have is agricultural exports. So food and cotton and all of these things that you grow on farms and things like that. All right, it's the most important export that we have. And again, it's because we have that huge area of fertile land, and so we make way more goods and food and all that kind of stuff than we can possibly use. And so we can use it to make money. We can sell it to other countries that need it. Okay. Some of the imports, really, almost everything is imported. I mean, we have our clothing, our cars, our household goods, anything that you can think of that is probably made in a factory. I mean, your shoes, it doesn't matter, is probably not made in America. Take some time right now to look at the tag on your shirt or, the tag inside of your shoes. It's unlikely that it's made in the USA. That doesn't happen very often. Okay, and so we import almost all of our goods. So how do people make money? Right? Well, where most of our jobs in America are in the service industry. We're in that secondary sector where we're doing something to help somebody else out. Where most of us in this country are not making something. We're not working in factories and making something. Instead, we're doing something for somebody else. Okay. So the question is why do we import these things? Okay. The biggest reason is because the cost of making it or manufacturing it is lower in those other countries than it is here, and mostly it's due to lower wages because we in this country have minimum wages and we ensure that everybody gets a fair wage, and so it's cheaper to make these things in another place where people can get paid much less. Okay, and we also import oil, But the reason we import oil, even though we have some here, is we want to save our strategic stores. And our strategic stores basically means we want to make sure we have some oil in case we go to war with some country that gives us the most oil. We want to make sure we have some left so that we can power our tanks and airplanes and all that kind of stuff, because otherwise you're kind of stuck. You can't win that war. Okay, and so it's important to save our strategic stores so that we can have independence, so we don't have to rely on anybody else. So if somebody else gets out of line, we can start a war with them, or break off any trade with them or anything like that. Okay, but oil is such an important thing that its price around the world affects every single country, because really at this point every single country needs oil, no matter who you are. However, when it comes to trade, we have a very special deal with some of our neighbors, some of the people that are very close to us. And so, as this picture shows over here, we've got a deal with a three-country deal here. It's called NAFTA, N-A-F-T-A. That stands for the North American Free Trade Agreement. And so basically what we said is we share a continent, let's make trade easy. It's easy for us to move the stuff from place to place, so it may as well be cheap as well. Okay, and so what they set up is a system where there are essentially no or lowered trade barriers between all three countries. Okay, so the US, Canada, and Mexico, you can basically trade for free across the borders of those. Okay, that way we can all share our resources and we can share the things that other countries are better at, and every single person is better off, because trade makes everybody better off, because you wouldn't make the trade if it didn't make you feel better about your position. Okay. We also have other agreements in place to promote free trade, and one of them is CAFTA, just an example. That is the Central American Free Trade Agreement, and we have agreed with all of these countries here that we're going to open up trade as well. Okay, so now we need to look at the economic regions and kind of what made them into strong regions and what they still do today. And really the Great Lakes region, which is kind of centered with Detroit, is really heavy into the auto manufacturing industry. So they build cars, and you've heard Detroit called the Motor City, and that's because a lot of the American car companies are headquartered there. One of the major ones that's still headquartered there today is Ford. Okay, so Ford Motor Company is in the Great Lakes region in Detroit. Okay, the Midwest is where we live right now, and agriculture is the most important thing in the Midwest. And you've probably seen one of these setups if you were driving, in the country at all. There's definitely some in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area too, and this is called a grain elevator. And what happens is the trains pull in, and a conveyor belt comes out, and the trains are full of like corn or oat or wheats or whatever. Okay, and that grain gets brought up the conveyor belt and fills up these tubes, and then it's stored there until the trains come that will take it from the elevator out to wherever it gets sold. Okay, and then essentially a chute opens up and dumps the train full of corn or wheat or whatever it is, and then it goes off. So you can see a lot of these grain elevators, and you see them in almost every town because it was absolutely necessary, because the most important thing was farming. And that's a little bit difficult to see here in Minneapolis-St. Paul because we have a lot of service industry, but there's a lot more farming kind of out in the country, in the areas that are not major cities. The next step is the Pacific Northwest. In the Pacific Northwest, the major part of the economy is forestry. And forestry means cutting down trees, and it's really kind of amazing. They have, if you look up any logging machines or anything like that, they have these amazing machines that latch onto a tree and can cut it down within seconds. They're just so fast anymore. But in order to kind of save the environment, they still have to use this wood as tree products, but they're trying to plant fast-growing trees and only use those trees that they're planting. So they're trying to not take down those really big trees that have been growing for hundreds of years, because they're so important to our environment and kind of to our history too. Okay, the next one is Southern California, and Southern California is where Hollywood is. And so Hollywood, as you can see, I took the picture, or brought this picture right here. That's where the entertainment industry in America is kind of centered. That's where movies and things are made, but also that's where the computer industry is centered. And so you've heard of Silicon Valley. That's because silicon is a main component in computer chips, and so all of these tech companies and computer companies like Google and Microsoft and Apple are headquartered in that Southern California area. Okay, and so that's a big entertainment computer industry area. But again, the most important industry everywhere, 100% most important one, is the service industry. Because what we're doing is we're helping people out. We're not building products here in America. We're more helping people out, doing things for other people. And so for this reason, we have very few export products and a whole lot of imports because we really just don't make products very much anymore. And so if you remember, the definition of culture was a pattern of activities, language, and habits common to a group of people. And that can include so many different things. It can include language, it can include religion, it can include all of these things. But what we're kind of talking about here is the foods, the music, the clothes, all of these types of things. Okay, so what makes America America? And kind of, I think what makes it America is that it's a land where all these people have come from everywhere else. It's an immigrant nation where people have come from all over the world and they've come together in this one country. And so what we call that is and this is the picture for it, is a melting pot. Whoops. A melting pot. And so the way that I like to think of it is almost like soup, okay? So you've got this American soup. And if you think about a soup, a carrot, you know what a carrot tastes like. You've bit into one, you know what it's like. Okay, but you throw that carrot into the soup, and it becomes part of that soup. It becomes soft, and it starts to taste like the soup, and it adds a little bit of flavor, but it kind of starts to taste like the soup instead. And so each one of these ingredients, each one of these cultures, is part of the soup that we're adding in. And so if you add the Italian people into the soup, it's going to change the flavor of the soup a little bit, but it's going to change those Italian people into this kind of American flavored thing, right? So each culture that comes in brings their own little piece of their culture, and America takes on that little part of their culture. But America also kind of expects you to become American, to give up some of your culture or to not have it be as present and as much in the front. So that's what the melting pot is. It's everybody gets dumped in there. They change the soup a little bit, but they're all going to get melted into the same form of everyone's Americans. So I tried to think of what are some truly American things, and really fast food is one of the things that I thought of when I thought of what's just American. I've got a picture of Eminem down here, even though rap music comes from kind of a combination of the melodies of Western Europe and the African beats and things like that. But also I kind of thought football, NFL was something that was created here and is seen as an American cultural phenomenon. So again, as we're building this culture and creating this American culture that's ever changing, we understand that these people bring their ideas from their home country and change what America is, but America also changes them. That's that whole melting pot thing we just talked about. Okay. However, with religion, a lot of people bring in their religion and they stick to their religion, because religion is something you stick to a little bit more than a lot of other pieces of culture because it's so important. Okay, and so these religions have moved in throughout time, and the top religion is Christian Protestants. So Christianity is the top percentage-wise religion in America. Okay, and then it's followed by Jewish. There are 2% of Americans are Jewish. As far as Muslim, there are about 1% of Americans, if you add them all together, are Muslim. And then Buddhist is the next highest one, and that's at 0.7% of all Americans. And then obviously, since we have freedom of religion, you're allowed to have any religion you want. So we have any number of religions, people of all kinds of different religions around America for sure. But those are kind of the top four in terms of percentages. Okay. And we also as far as our culture goes, our food kind of shows our variety and culture more than anything else. We adopt a lot more food from other people than we do anything else. And so these people come in from around the world, they bring their food, and Americans like it. And so we have Chinese restaurants, we have Mexican restaurants, we have Italian restaurants, you can go to any number of restaurants, okay, from any country, right? But it's also interesting because in America, some of those styles get combined. And so you hear of these restaurants that are like Italian Chinese fusion, where they're putting the ideas from Italian food together with the ideas from Chinese food and making a whole new type of food. So it's kind of interesting in a way, but we have a great diversity in our style of foods here. And also, since we have that since we have the identity and the internet messages and all of these things, our ideas are also spreading. So we are a cultural hearth. We are where that fire is. We're the central part of the American culture, and then the fire just kind of moves out from us. The heat from that fire goes out from us. That's why it's called a cultural hearth. Okay. But basically, the idea is our ideas are spreading around the world as well. We're not just taking things from other cultures. And so if we look at immigration today, we understand that there are a lot of push factors. People are being pushed out of their country for a bunch of different reasons. But what makes them, what I want to focus on is what makes them come to America. Why do they come here? Okay. And the idea is it's the American dream, right? The American dream. We've heard that so many times. What does it mean? It means you are here in America, you are allowed to do and be whatever you want to be. Okay, and so it's this idea that no one's stopping you from being whatever you aspire to be. Okay, and that's because of all these freedoms that we have. We have economic freedom, where you're allowed to do whatever you want for a job, allowed to do whatever you want for businesses. You're allowed to, make your own career decisions. Also, cultural freedom. You're free to be whoever you want. Nobody should be allowed to persecute you based on your culture. And then the last thing is religious freedom. We don't have an official religion in America. You're allowed to be whatever religion you want to be. And so people like that, and they think, okay, well, I can still be myself, but I can have all the opportunity and economic freedom that America provides. And so over the last 10 years, most of the population growth has been from immigration. It's more people have come in as immigrants than have been born American citizens. Okay, and why did the immigrants come in? Why do we see such an influx of immigrants? Because they want citizenship. Okay, not every country allows them to have free speech where they can say whatever they want, allows them to have free school where everybody gets education, you don't have to pay for it, and not every country allows every single person to vote. Okay, and so they have a say in their government as well. But in America, we do have those things, and so a lot of people do want to come in. So when these immigrant groups come in, what happens is they tend to stay in the same community. So that's one of the reasons that we see, a high concentration of Somali Americans, as well as Hmong Americans here in our town in St. Paul and Minneapolis. It's because, you want to be in the same community. You want to be near people like you. If you're learning the language, you want somebody around who speaks that other language that you know already. But essentially, what they do is they come in, they stay in that same community together, and they add to the workforce. Okay, they spend their time working, and so they're adding to our economy and improving our economy, as well as improving their own lives. And so the other thing that it's doing is it's building up our country. Okay, so the question becomes, and this is the question that's all across America all the time, it comes up every single time we have any election or anything like that, is should we make laws that are for immigration, pro-immigration, or anti-immigration? Okay. And the people that are pro-immigration are saying, let these people come in so they can build up our country, so they can build up our economy. We need more people to help us out. Plus, if they're, dying of war and things like that, how can we say no to somebody like that? And that's what a lot of the pro-immigration people are saying. Okay. Now, the anti-immigration people on the other side are being a little bit more greedy about it, but they make points as well. They're saying, these people are coming in. We have limited resources. Everybody has limited resources, and if we have too many people here, we're going to end up taking down all of our forests and drinking all of our water and using all of our oil just because we have so many people here. And so they're taking our resources. They also think of these people in stereotypes, if there is war and things like that in Syria because ISIS is killing a bunch of people and bombing and stuff like that, then what they're thinking is anybody that comes from Syria, because of the stereotype, is going to be a terrorist, is going to bomb people and shoot people and do all of these things. Okay, wrong or right, that's what they're thinking. Okay, the other thing that they think is they're taking our jobs. Okay, and so a lot of us are unemployed, and we don't want more people in here to compete with us. And so, like we learned last year, the foreign policy in America, it has a whole bunch of different things that we learned last year, all these different bullet points. But really, the main point of it all is we want to make the world better, but more than that, we want to make our place in the world better. We want to be the most powerful country, and we want to stay the most powerful country. Okay, and so that's kind of the most important thing with our foreign policy and how we deal with other people. And so what we do, or this kind of secondary part, is we want to help out our allies. Okay, and our allies are people that are also interested in the same things we are. Our power staying strong. Okay, peace and democracy. Okay, and those are kind of our main things that we want to move towards, and so our allies usually agree with those things. Okay, and so a lot of what we use is diplomacy, and diplomacy is the process of making decisions through discussion and negotiation with another country. So basically, it's how you're trying to solve problems before you attack somebody, before you use your military, right? So it could be anything. You could be saying, it could be nice or not. You could be saying, I would love to give you guys, I know you're having trouble, with your corn crop, and so we'd love to give you millions of pounds of corn, but you kind of got to do what we want you to do, and if you don't, we're not going to give it to you. Okay, it could be that kind of thing, or it could be something like, we are going to now cut off all trade with you because you are not acting right, you're not acting the way we want you to. Okay, and so it can be a threat, it can be a nice thing, you could be doing whatever, but if you're talking to another country without fighting them and trying to accomplish something, that is diplomacy. All right, and so one example of where diplomacy turned into war, military interventions, was 9/11. There were airplanes that were hijacked and ran into places. One of them hit the Pentagon, one of them went into a field in Pennsylvania because the passengers kind of fought back, and then two of them hit the World Trade Center in New York City, as I believe most of you know. Okay, and so what we did is we came together and we said, we need to fight against these people. We're now unified. We've been attacked on American soil, and so we need to attack them. And so we went into two different wars because of that. Into a war in Afghanistan where we were trying to remove the Taliban, okay, as well as kind of weaken this terrorist group that had attacked us. Okay, and then we also went into a war in Iraq against Saddam Hussein, because we believed that he had weapons of mass destruction, that he had nuclear weapons, and we were trying to stop him from developing them. Okay, and so we went in and we fought against them, and we didn't actually end up finding any weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein had. Now, regardless of that, Saddam Hussein was not a good guy. He was gassing his own people and killing them, and he was not a good guy. But really, these main conflicts that we're in right now all kind of stem from that war on terrorism that was brought on by the events of 9/11. And so some other interventions that we do as well outside of the government, we have an agency called USAID, which is the U.S. Agency for International Development, and a lot of what they do is provides food and supplies to countries that are in need. Okay, we also have the Peace Corps, which is a volunteer opportunity that a lot of people use, and what they do is they go and they provide food and all that kind of stuff, but they also go to the areas that are having trouble and they teach them survival skills, like maybe building a well or building houses or anything, the things that will help them to survive and do better on their own, whether it's farming or anything like that. Okay, there's also private organizations, which are just people trying to help out, like Bill and Melinda Gates. Okay, and Bill and Melinda Gates have a foundation called the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and their whole aim is to put as much money and gain money and do as much as they can into helping provide healthcare around the world. So people that don't have the opportunity to have immunizations and healthcare can have it because these people are trying to do it in a charitable way. And so what we're really trying to do is to stop the conflict in the world. That's what we want to do. And so what we use is this method, which is kind of shown right here, of carrot and stick. And so we use the carrot and stick method of diplomacy, okay? And what we basically do is we have this carrot and we're trying to make the donkey, the other country, move forward. And so we put the carrot in front of them, and that donkey wants that carrot, and so they move forward, right? And so what we're trying to say is you can make a lot of money trading with us. You can, we can help you out. We can do all of these different things. But if that donkey doesn't move, what is this guy gonna do? He's got that stick. Okay, that stick in the back where he will whip the donkey and make him move if he won't move towards the carrot. Okay, and so we say, where you can make money off the trade, you can have the carrot, but if you don't take the carrot, if you don't use that as your main motivator, then we will be able to attack you. We do have a big, strong military, and we can use the stick to hit you and make you move forward. Okay, and so it's basically here, we're going to try and be nice, but if being nice doesn't work, we also have the power to do it the other way, the hard way.